On a busy day in bustling Japan, Hiroki, a college student, was riding the train. Lost in his usual gaming routine, a sudden strange event shook him. In an instant, Hiroki found himself sitting on the ground, dazed and baffled by his surroundings. He looked up and realized he was at the foot of a throne, surrounded by vigilant knights. It became clear that Hiroki, along with other students, had been summoned to a mysterious world called Eseka. He scanned the area, struggling to grasp the surreal situation. Hiroki noticed two familiar faces, Ruri and Ren, both high school students. Ruri's bewildered expression spoke volumes as she slowly rose to her feet. Hiroki guessed they too had been pulled into this strange place without any understanding of what was happening. Rising to his feet, Hiroki concluded he'd been transported to another world. Like in the manga and games he knew, the king, Joseph, warmly welcomed the students, hailing them as brave heroes. Yet, Hiroki still couldn't quite believe his eyes. Amused by the situation, Hiroki listened as the king explained the kingdom's dire straits due to demon attacks. King Joseph ordered the heroes to defeat the demon lord on his behalf. Hiroki sized up the king, thinking he might be a fool, skeptical of the severity of the situation. A wizard interrupted, asking for their names before sharing more details. Hiroki, Ruri, and Ren introduced themselves clearly and confidently. The wizard cheered, thrilled at the heroes' successful summoning. Assured that these students had the potential to become powerful, he revealed that their kingdom bordered the Hadsate Inatent, the demonic continent, homeland of the demon race. He urged the heroes to train quickly and become strong enough to face the demon king. Hiroki looked on skeptically, not trusting any of this. Though initially irritated, Hiroki was comforted by Ruri and Ren's level-headedness. The wizard then requested the heroes to reveal their status boards to assess their powers. The three students stood in stunned silence, their confusion clear. Suddenly, the wizard noticed that the heroes seemed clueless about what a status board was. With a flick of his hand, he opened the status boards for them. The students were awestruck as a magical board materialized before each of them. Hiroki's gamer instincts fired up, seeing the familiar game-like setup. He swiftly opened his board, surprising Ruri and Ren. The two exchanged glances and followed Hiroki's lead. Hiroki discovered he was assigned a support role. His status board revealed an imbalance, reflecting his doubts. His first skill, language mastery, enabled fluent communication. Other skills included healing and regeneration, which he found practical. Hiroki realized his role was that of a cleric, essentially a healer. The wizard was delighted to have a healer, a rare class among heroes. He explained the advanced skill of a cleric, capable of healing any injury. Hiroki took in this information quietly. He realized he had instinctively referred to himself as a healer, and decided to keep his true role as a cleric a secret, posing only as a healer. Ruri revealed she was a mage, a high-ranking sorceress. Ren, still puzzled, admitted his role was simply hero. The wizard was most surprised by Ren's role. Hiroki felt for Ren, knowing the hero role was the heaviest burden. Yet he admitted Ren had the most heroic aura among them. The wizard reminded them they could strengthen their status boards through leveling up. Hiroki, inwardly smiling, thought to himself, I may not know games as well as I thought. Ren, holding 50 stat points, was unsure about which attributes to upgrade. Meanwhile, Hiroki, glancing at his own status board, felt a flash of surprise. The wizard marveled, believing Ren's high stat points were a divine blessing for a hero. Normally, additional points were only gained through leveling up. Excitement flickered in Hiroki's eyes as he recognized the familiar stat point system. He asked the wizard about average stat values in this world. The wizard answered that the range was typically between 20 and 30. Reaching a stat of 50 would make someone top tier, akin to a powerful monster. The three students continued examining their status boards. Hiroki stared at his 100 recovery points with fascination, wondering just how strong he could become. Testing his power, Hiroki focused on healing an old injury, the scar that had kept him from wearing short sleeves in summer. As he healed, he kept a wary eye on his surroundings. Warmth radiated from his magic, and he rubbed his arm to find that the scar was completely gone. This confirmed his recovery speed was highly effective. Thoughtfully, he considered how best to allocate his remaining stat points. He noted that a healer should have survival skills, strategic positioning, and strong healing abilities. Some would prioritize defense first to avoid falling in battle too quickly. After all, a healer who dies first is a liability. But Hiroki thought that focusing too much on defense would be unnecessary. Instead, he chose to prioritize his evasion stat. reasoning that a healer with dodging skills would increase survival chances. This way, he thought, they could eliminate enemies faster without unnecessary risk. With this in mind, Hiroki allocated all his points to evasion, drawing a surprise question from Ruri. Shocked voices echoed in the throne room. The guards were aghast, thinking Hiroki should focus on his healing abilities. The wizard, however, was furious, his face twisted in rage, catching Hiroki off guard with his anger. Calling him naive, the wizard stressed that a healer was rare and crucial. The king's expression darkened, and he ordered Hiroki's imprisonment. Struggling against the guards, Hiroki saw the king's face contorted with fury. The guards roughly escorted him to a dungeon cell and tossed him inside. One guard, irritated, swung a punch at Hiroki. To everyone's surprise, Hiroki dodged it effortlessly, leaving the guard stunned. Hiroki himself was surprised, which only seemed to annoy the guard further. The guard threw another punch, but Hiroki dodged that too. Another guard questioned his partner's struggle. The first guard snapped that Hiroki was dodging all his punches. Silently, Hiroki was pleased to see his evasion skill in action. When a sudden kick came his way, Hiroki instinctively dodged. The guards kept trying to hit him, but he avoided every blow with ease. Frustrated, the guards exchanged puzzled looks, while Hiroki felt a quiet satisfaction. Annoyed, the guards decided to leave him locked up for now. With a smirk, Hiroki taunted, "So who's the useless one now?" But he quickly grew serious, plotting his next move. He knew the wizard would never imprison him if he checked his status board. Yet Hiroki almost hoped for it, as he plotted his escape from the dungeon. But even if he escaped, he'd still face trouble. He worried about Ruri and Ren, wondering how they were holding up. Focusing on his plan, Hiroki decided to test his skills, so he opened his status board. He hesitated to harm himself just to experiment. After all, he'd chosen to be a dodging healer to avoid pain. Hiroki got up from the bed. He knew that healing was a classic RPG spell. He tried casting it on himself. A warm light surrounded him, and he felt his magic's comforting glow. He wondered how often he could use it, so he kept casting healing. It felt like being buried in sand. Yet he hadn't even reached his skill's limit. Hiroki thought his mana reserve seemed endless, and felt relieved the king hadn't seen his true powers. Still, he yearned for more diverse skills, staying hopeful that they'd grow as he leveled up. The warmth of the magic made Hiroki drowsy, so he decided to rest before figuring out his escape. Ruri and Ren descended into the dungeon, witnessing Hiroki's condition and feeling guilty. His resilience left them in awe. Suddenly, Hiroki woke, greeting Ruri and Ren with a smile. Ren revealed that the king had agreed to release him from the dungeon. Hiroki was stunned. Despite their abandonment, Ruri and Ren still cared for him. As they walked down the hallway, Hiroki briefed them on his situation. In a waiting room, Hiroki was unsettled by the strange decor and eerie atmosphere. Ren offered him fruit, reminding him of their mission to defeat the Demon King. Ren added that once the task was complete, the king would return them to their original time and place, as if nothing had changed. Hiroki found the offer vague. Ruri despised the kingdom's complacency while they did all the hard work. Ren agreed, expressing doubts about the kingdom's true motives. The heroes felt reassured by these thoughts, and they were glad to have found true allies in the Hisekai world. They reveled in finally having real friends. The trio decided to stay silent for now, observing until they figured out how to return home. Surprisingly, Ruri showed interest in the different races. She explained that the Hisekai world classified races into 3 categories: humans, demonkin, and beastkin. Demonkin excelled in magic, beastkin in martial arts, while humans, gifted with intelligence, sat atop the food chain. However, it was safest for them not to engage with other races. Ren suggested it was best to wait and observe. Hiroki, however, still believed exploring the demonkin, experts in magic, would be valuable. Just then, a confused voice echoed through the castle. Ruri explained that the 3 main skills were passive: weaponry, magic, and martial arts. This made it hard for Hiroki to become truly versatile, yet it was clear they needed to gather information from the outside world. Hiroki kept thinking about seeking answers from other kingdoms but didn't know how to express it. Ren announced that he and Ruri planned to stay in the kingdom. Hiroki's face lit up with surprise. Ren expressed his regret, but Hiroki eagerly agreed with their plan. He emphasized the need to search for clues beyond the kingdom. Hiroki reassured Ruri, saying he would be fine as his goal was to become a healer with evasion. Ruri remembered how Hiroki had invested all his points into evasion, leading to his imprisonment. She revealed that, as he had suspected, they usually distribute stat points normally. This left Ruri puzzled as to why Hiroki had focused entirely on evasion. Hiroki explained that he could dodge every attack his enemies threw at him. Ren was astonished to learn Hiroki was almost unbeatable. Hiroki proudly credited his gaming knowledge for his advantage. Ruri and Ren asked Hiroki to find answers, but Hiroki felt anxious about leaving the kingdom. Yet, he couldn't hide his excitement about exploring other realms. His gamer instincts urged him to explore the Sakai world. Meanwhile, Hiroki was surprised by the king's decision to release him. Ren picked up a pair of gloves, intending to reveal something to Hiroki. Hiroki was taken aback when Ren showed him a bracelet. Ren explained that as long as they wore the contract bracelet, they could all move freely within the kingdom. Hiroki felt uneasy about Ren's agreement with the king. Ruri was displeased, knowing Ren couldn't visit other kingdoms without royal permission. Hiroki grew angry and blamed himself for Ren's predicament. He wasn't about to apologize, but he promised to find a way to break the curse. Ren was taken aback, and Ruri supported Hiroki's vow. Ren felt relieved by the encouragement from his friends. They brainstormed ways to stay in touch. Hiroki suggested they use their first names since the king only knew their family names. Ren agreed, and Ruri handed Hiroki a pouch to prepare for his journey. Ren gave him a few items he could sell for money. Hiroki received a pen, a notebook, a hand mirror, and a handkerchief from Hana. He thanked his friends deeply. Hiroki set off on his journey, the scenery outside reminding him of a classic RPG. As night fell, Hiroki decided to look for an inn. First, though, he needed to earn money and gather information. Hiroki began searching for a shop to sell his items, though he wasn't sure what to sell. He didn't want to part with Ruri or Ren's belongings, or his own. Suddenly, he remembered the 3 chocolate bars he had, though he wasn't sure they'd sell. Looking at the merchant, Hiroki wondered if his plan would work. He also wondered if there were guilds in the Hisakai world. Out of nowhere, he noticed people staring at him. They were eyeing his strange outfit. Hiroki decided to buy new clothes to blend in. While searching, he spotted a sign, but couldn't understand the writing on it. Hiroki opened his status screen. He realized he couldn't use his language learning skill to read it. This left him feeling hopeless, until someone approached him. He quickly explained that he was having trouble finding a guild. Tina, a novice mage, assumed Hiroki was lost. Hiroki felt embarrassed, like a child who had wandered off. With enthusiasm, Tina offered her help, as she was headed to the guild herself. Tina had just defeated a slime and was on her way to claim her first reward. Hiroki's excitement grew when he learned that fighting could earn him money. Suddenly, a voice called out to the mage. Thea spotted Tina and told Floyd, both adventurers, that they had found her. Tina waved to her friends, and they expressed concern after having lost sight of her. Thea asked about Hiroki, and Tina explained that he was looking for a guild. Floyd cheerfully offered to help Hiroki and led him to their destination. The 2 adventurers introduced themselves, and Hiroki was fortunate to have found companions so early in his journey. Floyd led the way to the guild, pointing to the massive building that was impossible to miss. Hiroki marveled at the Adventurers Guild. Floyd casually mentioned the possibility of a dragon appearing, which startled Hiroki, even though monster invasions were rare in the city. This only fueled Hiroki's desire to level up faster, his excitement palpable as he entered a place every gamer dreamed of. Floyd and his group reported their mission, then directed Hiroki to the registration area. Floyd advised Hiroki to reach out to them if he needed anything. In the reception hall, Hala greeted Hiroki warmly. Hiroki blushed when he met a beastman for the first time, realizing that humans and beastmen coexisted. Hala revealed she was a half-beast, a rare sight in the area. Hiroki apologized for staring and expressed his desire to become an adventurer. She explained that the guild was a neutral space where all races could join, even demons, who also had their own adventurers. Hala confirmed that adventurers could cross borders freely due to their high demand. Once registered, adventurers could take as many quests as they wanted. They could choose tasks from the corner board. But since Hiroki couldn't read, Hala guided him to the reception desk for assistance. The receptionist warned him to be cautious when accepting quests. Hiroki proceeded with the registration, and Hala handed him a form to fill out, asking for a registration fee. Hiroki was surprised to learn that registration wasn't free. Since he couldn't read, Hala kindly filled out the form for him. Hiroki offered to pay with his items. Hala agreed, and Hiroki handed her the chocolate bars. The receptionist examined the items, but Hala struggled to determine their value. Hiroki suggested she taste it, and if she liked it, she could pay his registration fee. If not, there'd be no obligation to buy. The receptionist caught the rich aroma of the chocolate, and when she tasted it, Hala was so awestruck she was speechless. She trembled as she tried to describe the flavor, her face alight with joy after tasting it. Hala looked like she was in heaven, recounting her delightful experience. Hala agreed to cover Hiroki's registration fee, on the condition that he gave her the remaining chocolate. When Hala asked about his skills, Hiroki shared that he was a healer who had put all his points into evasion. As she filled out his information, Hala suddenly paused, her face showing confusion as she recalled Hiroki's focus on evasion. Hiroki reassured her, assuring that he had saved some points for his healing skills. Still concerned, Hala asked if Hiroki belonged to any group. Hiroki confirmed that he was alone, but was open to joining one. Hala explained that no group would accept him, as the receptionist believed Hiroki's skill set wouldn't be valuable to any team. Hiroki remained skeptical, but was confident in his build. Hala urged him to reconsider, but Hiroki insisted on continuing with the registration, and resolved to ask groups about joining the guild. After thanking Hala for her help, Hiroki began looking for a group. He spotted a group of experienced adventurers in the corner and approached them. The leader praised Hiroki for his rare job as a healer. The group observed Hiroki quietly, and it seemed they were impressed. Hiroki's confidence grew, knowing healers were always in demand. He also admitted his lack of experience as an adventurer, but remained assured in his abilities. Hiroki emphasized his high evasion skill, believing it would help him avoid danger. The group was so taken aback that they were speechless, and the leader ultimately turned down Hiroki's request to join. Despite feeling disappointed, Hiroki pressed on, searching for another group. He approached the team seated at a table and introduced himself. This time, his job as a healer was met with positive feedback. Although he didn't carry a shield, Hiroki highlighted his healing and regeneration skills. Initially, the group seemed okay with his abilities, until Hiroki mentioned his evasion-based healing. As he explained the value of his build, the group quickly left the table, rejecting him. One adventurer remarked they didn't need any more burdens in their team. Lucia, a half-beast adventurer, appeared guilty as she carried the team's luggage when she was called out. Hiroki noticed this and felt sympathy for her. He sighed, continuing his search for another group, scanning the room. All he could hear was the eerie silence, and frustration started to build as the rejections piled up. As he tried to shake off his disappointment, Hala called out, offering him the chance to withdraw his registration. Instead, Hiroki asked where he could find monsters and requested a mission unrelated to monster slaying. The receptionist voiced concern about the dangers of dungeons. Hiroki reassured her that he was only scouting and would be fine. Unable to persuade him otherwise, Hala handed him a task: to gather herbs in the stone dungeon, a mission without a time limit, and the guild would buy all the herbs he collected. Hala continued to warn him to be careful. Excited, Hiroki dived straight into his first mission. While Hala kept urging caution, outside, Hiroki noticed the sun beginning to set. Needing money badly, he decided to press on with the mission, and was determined to gather herbs for his first reward. Having rested plenty in the dungeon, he thought staying awake all night wouldn't be a problem. Finally, he reached the stone dungeon and entered. Immediately, Hiroki noticed the vast empty space inside. So far, he hadn't encountered any monsters. Recalling Hala's warning, he decided to create a small carpet for safety. Suddenly, Hiroki spotted a shimmering slime moving toward him, launching an immediate attack. With his evasion skill, Hiroki easily dodged the slime, finding it surprisingly cute. He didn't feel that the slime posed any real threat. Thinking slimes were easy to defeat, he prepared to kick it. However, he was shocked to find that his attack did no damage, reminded that his attack stat was only 1 point. This made him more cautious about his abilities. Unable to do anything, Hiroki wondered if the slime would keep following him. Suddenly, another slime appeared, but Hiroki decided to ignore it and move on. He was focused on gathering herbs to earn money, and couldn't stop worrying about others' doubts about finding a group and his evasion skill build. Hiroki was determined to prove them wrong on this first mission. The slimes continued to attack, but they missed every time. Hiroki didn't pay attention to their strikes until he noticed they had stopped. Realizing that the monsters couldn't leave their floor, he decided to venture deeper into the dungeon. On each level, he encountered different monsters like rats and wolves, but he dodged them with ease thanks to his evasion skill. As he delved further, the monsters began to attack in mixed groups. Eventually, Hiroki found the herbs he needed to collect, remembering Hala's instructions about soothing grass and healing herbs. While gathering them, the monsters continued to attack, but none could land a hit on Hiroki. He kept searching for higher quality herbs. A wolf slammed into the wall trying to reach him, but couldn't make contact. As he entered a larger basement area, Hiroki hoped to find something even more interesting. He quickly discovered a patch of healing herbs and began collecting them. Suddenly, a strange sensation crept over him, torn between fleeing or pushing forward, relying on his evasion to navigate the danger ahead. Hiroki hid behind a corner, trying to stay still and quiet. He trembled with fear as he tried to plan his next move. To his horror, his legs weakened when he saw a massive horned bear. Despite the overwhelming fear, Hiroki decided to press forward. He approached the bear, and the monster immediately showed its dominance, sending chills through Hiroki's spine. The bear's thunderous roar sent Hiroki into a panic, but he accepted the challenge and braced for impact. Fortunately, thanks to his evasion skill, Hiroki dodged every strike the bear threw at him. The horned bear, dazed from its failed attempts, couldn't react. Hiroki sighed in relief, surprised by how smoothly things had gone. Feeling more confident, he continued gathering herbs as the bear kept attacking, but never landed a hit. Hiroki wondered whether he should confront the bear head-on. In the end, he collected enough herbs to afford a room at an inn. Fatigue began to set in as Hiroki decided to take a break. Just then, he couldn't believe his eyes. Several more horned bears appeared, ready to attack. Hiroki immediately fled from the swarm of monsters. Out of nowhere, he spotted a room in the corner, wondering if it contained treasures or the dungeon's boss. Deciding to press on, Hiroki wanted to test his abilities and charged into the room. He opened the door cautiously. Inside, a massive silhouette loomed, a boss monster, an aggressive orc charging toward him without hesitation. Despite the overwhelming fear, Hiroki braced himself to face the towering orc. As expected, the orc's attack missed, leaving it stunned. Hiroki displayed confidence in his dodge skill, intending to provoke the giant orc. Hiroki's actions only made the orc angrier. He noticed that they seemed evenly matched, but instead of continuing to fight, he started exploring the boss room. Suddenly, he spotted a passage in the corner, which caused the orc to become stuck as it chased after him. Hiroki felt the situation was in his favor, until he noticed a treasure on the other side of the passage. He discovered a magic circle, which he suspected was a teleportation gate. Upon opening the treasure, Hiroki found a book, thinking it was a grimoire. However, he soon realized that it was completely empty. Disappointed, he almost tossed the book aside, but hesitated, wondering if there might be a way to read it after all. Not knowing how to decode the book, Hiroki decided to keep it in his bag. In the meantime, he thought about what to do with the magic circle. After some consideration, Hiroki stepped into the magic circle. Light enveloped him, and suddenly a beam shot up. When the light faded, Hiroki realized he was standing where other adventurers were, at the entrance of the dungeon. His surprised expression showed his excitement over the unexpected experience. Deciding to return to the guild, Hiroki couldn't help but notice the adventurers of various ranks gathering at the entrance. Osha hurriedly ran toward her group, carrying her belongings. Upon returning to the guild, Hala greeted Hiroki with surprise, relieved to see him back safely. The receptionist had thought Hiroki had given up on exploring the dungeon. Hala wondered if Hiroki had finally found a group to join. Instead, Hiroki presented all the herbs he had gathered, leaving Hala astonished. The receptionist was impressed to see the high-quality herbs in such good condition. She assumed Hiroki had found a strong group, but Hiroki confirmed that he had completed the mission alone, relying solely on his evasion skills. Hala was confused, but agreed, and handed Hiroki his reward. He expressed his excitement at finally earning his first money. Then, Hiroki took out the blank book and handed it to Hala for inspection. The receptionist looked at the book with a blank expression, while Hiroki explained that the pages inside were all empty. Disappointment showed on his face, thinking the book was just trash. Hala tightly grasped the book and explained that it was a special kind used to learn skills. Hiroki's face lit up with surprise, but he was still confused because the book had no writing. Hala continued to explain that, although brown books were the least valuable type, they were still quite precious. Hiroki couldn't contain his excitement and exclaimed loudly. Hala strongly encouraged him to use the book, offering to guide him on how to use it. Hiroki placed his hand on the book, and the next step was to exchange his current skill for a new one. As he used the skill Heal, light radiated from the book, thrilling Hala. Hiroki successfully acquired the shield skill. The announcement of the new skill surprised Hiroki. This new skill reminded him of the guild members he had met before. If he had teammates, this skill would be very useful. Hiroki confirmed that he had successfully used the book. Hala was overjoyed by this. The receptionist had high hopes for Hiroki. As she noted the chocolate he had given her, Hala began to question his true identity. Fearing his secret might be exposed, Hiroki insisted he was just an ordinary explorer. The healer decided to continue his journey. Before heading to the inn, he ran a few errands. That's when an irresistible scent caught his attention. The vendor urged him to give it a try. After a long night in the dungeon, Hiroki treated himself to a meat skewer. He savored the meal, his eyes scanning the lively market around him. He wandered through the food stalls, then took a moment to rest by the fountain, observing the locals. Hiroki remembered Hala's words about humans being the majority in this kingdom. This sparked his curiosity about other kingdoms. Coming from another world, Hiroki was eager to meet new races, like the noble elves. Suddenly, Lucia, an elf, crossed his mind, though he wasn't entirely sure about that. Unexpectedly, Hiroki opened his status screen. His face lit up with excitement upon discovering a new skill. He couldn't wait to try out the shield skill. After returning the cup to the vendor, an old woman noticed his unusual attire. This reminded Hiroki that he needed new clothes. He searched for casual wear and selected an outfit from a nearby stall. The old woman handed him a thin fabric, which he intended to use as loungewear. He also grabbed a backpack. Stepping outside, he decided to test his new skill. A slime appeared, and Hiroki still found it endearing. He immediately activated the shield, a layer of light surrounding his body. To further test the skill, he allowed the slime to strike him, but the slime kept slipping off, revealing Hiroki's impressive dodging abilities. As a result, he couldn't fully assess the shield's effect. He wondered when he might get a chance to test the skill properly. His body continued to glow until an enemy broke through it. Hiroki decided to search for a stronger opponent. Suddenly, he was drawn to a commotion nearby. Tina and Daya were in battle. Hiroki couldn't spot Floyd anywhere. Daya was skillfully dodging attacks. Meanwhile, Tina hurled a fireball at the slime. Hiroki, hidden behind a bush, observed the fight. It seemed evenly matched. They were likely just trying to level up. Then, the slime landed a critical hit on Daya, causing Hiroki to worry. Another slime lunged at Tina, but Hiroki intervened just in time with his shield. The light shield surrounded Tina, leaving her stunned. Hiroki was pleased to see his skill work. Daya urged Tina to counterattack, and she immediately fired back. The slime vanished after Tina's fireball, defeated. Hiroki let out a relieved sigh and decided to leave before they noticed him. However, he accidentally made a noise, catching Tina's attention. She called him back. Tina and Daya expressed their gratitude to Hiroki for saving them. They urged him not to use honorifics with them. Tina confirmed this request, but Hiroki admitted he wasn't used to addressing older people without honorifics. Both Tina and Daya seemed confused when it came to their ages. Hiroki was surprised, as he was actually older than them. Both Tina and Daya were taken aback when they learned his real age. Suddenly, Daya rushed to warn Hiroki to be cautious. However, Hiroki stayed calm as the slimes hopped and slid around him. Tina and Daya were alarmed as Hiroki remained still, glowing. Hiroki reassured them that he was fine. The slimes continued to miss him with every attack. Tina and Daya were still confused, watching Hiroki dodge the slimes with ease. His body swayed slightly, demonstrating his impeccable evasion skills. Hiroki even shyly mentioned that his dodging ability helped him acquire the skill book. He asked Tina and Daya to help him defeat the slimes. Tina and Daya immediately joined in. Hiroki thought having teammates was fantastic and looked forward to forming his own party. The slimes were defeated, leaving Tina and Daya exhausted. Hiroki offered to heal Tina, but she assured him she was only out of mana. Hiroki learned that overusing magic could lead to fatigue, even with rest. He realized using the shield was troublesome, as it caused him to glow. Tina suggested that he had activated the skill too early, forgetting to adjust its effect. She explained that magic could be controlled depending on the mana spent. If Hiroki increased his defense, the number of times he could protect himself would decrease. He was excited by this new understanding. Hiroki focused on mastering his control over his power. The glowing light began to fade, and Tina asked if he could use the shield to protect her, explaining it would override the effect and reset his defensive abilities. Tina and Daya found Hiroki peculiar, commenting that although he was stronger than them, he lacked basic knowledge. Suddenly, Hiroki yawned. revealing he hadn't slept since the dungeon mission. Daya recommended he visit the Falling Star Inn, telling him the rooms were spacious and the food was excellent. She also mentioned that Floyd was currently at the inn, fast asleep after overindulging. Hiroki decided to head to the inn and offered Tina a piggyback ride. Embarrassed, she declined, suggesting they continue hunting. Hiroki reminded her that she was out of mana. Tina insisted he go ahead to the inn. Tina felt anxious, while Daya was in awe of Hiroki. Tina remarked that she had never seen anyone fight like him before. At the Falling Star Inn, Tina and Daya arrived and quickly left with Floyd. The next morning, Hiroki woke up panting after an entire day's sleep. He went downstairs, where the innkeeper greeted him while preparing breakfast. She mentioned he had slept the whole day, leaving Hiroki feeling completely refreshed. She served him a complimentary breakfast, which Hiroki enjoyed with delight. While Hiroki ate, the innkeeper asked if he was friends with Floyd. Hiroki confirmed and was told Floyd had just left the inn. The innkeeper gave Hiroki an extra dessert, showing her support for him as a newcomer. She kindly reminded him not to hesitate to ask if he ever needed anything. Hiroki asked if she knew of any weapon shops, and she eagerly confirmed, drawing him a map to one. As he savored his dessert, Hiroki was excited about the prospect of finding a good shop. Afterward, he visited the old store, and upon entering, he was impressed by its sleek and stylish design. The sound of footsteps echoed, and an old man greeted him warmly. Hiroki was surprised to find a dwarf working in the store. The shopkeeper noticed Hiroki's unusual attire and asked about his profession. Hiroki explained he was a healer, prompting the dwarf to lead him to the cloak section. However, Hiroki was actually looking for gear to improve his evasion skills. The dwarf asked why he needed such equipment, and Hiroki explained that he had invested most of his stats into evasion. The dwarf found Hiroki's approach quite eccentric. However, no group had accepted him, so the dwarf advised Hiroki to reconsider his path. Hiroki, undeterred, remained determined to focus on evasion. The dwarf asked what Hiroki would do without a team, but Hiroki didn't mind acting alone and still hoped to find those who understood him. The dwarf, seeing his resolve, supported him as he prepared for the worst. Hiroki felt a sense of familiarity with the shopkeeper. The dwarf admitted that a healer focused on evasion wasn't a bad idea, but warned that monsters could eventually adapt and grow stronger. Hiroki was thrilled to meet someone who shared his thoughts, like the shopkeeper. However, the dwarf repeatedly warned him about the challenges of finding a group later. Hiroki was taken aback when the dwarf asked about his budget for the weapon shop. With limited funds, Hiroki could only afford items without magical enhancements. Hiroki confirmed he was looking for equipment that would boost his stats. The dwarf nodded, proudly declaring his race to be the finest blacksmiths. Hiroki's eager expression made the dwarf offer him the chance to feel the equipment. Hiroki examined the equipment closely. He asked the dwarf if there was any way to boost his evasion. With a stern gaze, the dwarf challenged whether Hiroki truly believed he had such extraordinary items. Hiroki was momentarily speechless, caught off guard. The dwarf then suggested crafting a custom item for him. A spark of excitement lit up Hiroki's face as he began to plan how to save up for the equipment. He left the shop, grinning with renewed hope. Suddenly, the dwarf lunged to grab him, but Hiroki's swift evasion caused the dwarf to trip and fall. The dwarf quickly realized that Hiroki had enough funds to buy equipment without enchantments. Once Hiroki had saved more, the dwarf could add the evasion enchantment. Hiroki carefully picked out his gear. The dwarf mentioned his granddaughter sometimes crafted these items. While searching, Hiroki finally found something that caught his eye. The dwarf offered a discount on the cloak Hiroki was interested in. Hiroki eagerly tried it on. He was pleased with how the cloak fit, and the dwarf cheerfully remarked that he didn't look like a healer at all. The dwarf silently thought to himself that Hiroki was likely hiding his true identity as a priest. Hiroki thanked him and left, planning to gather more herbs for money. The dwarf asked if Hiroki was planning to head to the slime cave. Hiroki was puzzled, while the dwarf stared in surprise, unaware that he didn't know about it. The dwarf explained it was a dungeon full of slimes and herbs, a place everyone considered a gold mine. Adventurers were so focused on battling the slimes that they neglected the valuable herbs. Curious, Hiroki asked the dwarf where the dungeon was located. The shopkeeper warned that every year a new adventurer meets an unavoidable disaster in that dungeon. Hiroki looked nervous, but still confident in his dodging skills, something the dwarf admired about him. Afterward, Hiroki paid for his purchase. Suddenly, his gaze landed on a unique accessory in the shop. The dwarf asked if he was interested in it. Hiroki inquired about any contract-breaking accessories. Though rare, the dwarf explained he hoped to break a contract with that item, disappointing Hiroki, who felt the dwarf didn't know much about it. Deciding to move on, Hiroki headed for the slime dungeon. The dwarf shouted his warning again, urging him not to enter the cave. Hiroki waved goodbye with a confident smile. As Hiroki ventured into the forest, he noticed many warning signs. After a long search, Hiroki finally found the dungeon, its ominous appearance sending a chill down his spine. Hiroki was taken aback to see animals calmly drinking from the water, even with slimes lurking nearby. Unperturbed, Hiroki made up his mind to enter the dungeon. The moment he stepped inside, he noticed the slimes. With ease, Hiroki avoided the small, adorable creatures. As expected, herbs were indeed growing within the dungeon, confirming the dwarf's words were accurate. The slimes were also exactly as described. However, all Hiroki found on the floor was relaxation grass. He thought about venturing deeper, despite the warnings, but his resolve to press on was unshaken. Before proceeding, Hiroki carefully calculated his expenses, realizing he was running low on money. With no choice, Hiroki pressed on in search of RVs. Fortunately, the slimes couldn't follow him to the next level, so he aimed to gather herbs near the staircase. Without a second thought, he rushed to find the nearest stair. The growing number of slimes unnerved him, until he stumbled upon yet another group of the quirky monsters ahead. The slimes were multiplying far more than he had anticipated. Hiroki wondered if he could dodge them all, but with no other option, he pressed on, driven by the need for money. Finally, he spotted the staircase, relieved it was easy to find, but the slimes kept multiplying. He chuckled, realizing he hadn't fully tested his dodging skills, despite having evaded orc attacks before. I still don't know my limits, he thought, almost dancing as he dodged, testing the limits of his abilities. Excited, he began experimenting, staying close to the stairs. Hiroki wondered where all the slimes were coming from. Could they split endlessly? Doubt clouded his mind as the slimes continued to swarm him. Suddenly, a strange, distorted scene appeared before him. Hiroki found himself momentarily bewildered. He wondered if it was the lingering effect of the shield, recalling Tina's warning. Realizing the effect was still present after several days, he began to worry as he noticed his dodging ability was fading. The slimes had increased to 30, making it harder to avoid them. He grew cautious, not wanting to fall into the trap the dwarf had warned about. Hiroki decided to end the experiment, but as he glanced at the slimes, fear washed over him. He was surrounded. A blow from one slime sent Hiroki into panic, and he failed to dodge it. He collapsed to the ground, wincing in pain. Another slime moved to strike, but Hiroki quickly healed and activated his shield. A bright light enveloped him instantly. He planned his escape as the slime slipped off his shield, failing to land any hits. Panicking, Hiroki sprinted for his life, dreading the sight and sound of the slimes that would haunt his nightmares. He barely made it to the stairs, a place the slimes couldn't follow. Out of breath, Hiroki collapsed onto the steps. At last, he realized the limits of his dodging skill, no longer underestimating the slimes. He looked up at the nest of slimes he'd unintentionally created, but strangely, all he saw on the second floor was relaxing grass, no slimes. Suddenly, an oddly cute slime appeared, though it was far from ordinary. This slime had long ears and could leap high, and to Hiroki's surprise, it had wings and could fly. Amused, Hiroki watched the flying slime hover in the air. It moved toward him, unleashing a lightning attack. Hiroki dodged it, but his heels stayed frozen, shocking him. He thought he was paralyzed, lying still, unable to move. Hiroki healed himself, but the paralysis lingered. He realized he needed a different kind of magic to cure it. Hiroki was stunned by the power of the slime on the second floor. The flying slime attacked again. Hiroki tried to stay calm, knowing his shield was still active. The slime bounced off, striking beside his motionless body. Hiroki was taken aback to see the slime miss, realizing his dodging skill was still working despite being paralyzed. He wondered just how strong his dodging ability was, as his immobile body continued to dance around the attacks. The slime's pride slowly crumbled with each missed strike. Hiroki grew more hopeful, feeling the paralysis slowly fading. Once he could move again, Hiroki was confident he'd win. The slime, now in tears, fired another lightning bolt, but Hiroki dodged again. Just as Hiroki's paralysis was about to wear off, the slime extended it. If this continued, Hiroki feared he might starve, trapped in eternal immobility. Hiroki was helpless, unable to fight back against the slime. Suddenly, figures appeared at the dungeon entrance. Strangers. Hiroki's face lit up, and he shouted for help. Floyd and his team were stunned to see Hiroki in such a perilous situation. Tears welled up in Hiroki's eyes. Floyd and his companions rushed to his side, alarmed, quickly assessing his condition and realizing he had been attacked by the flying slime. Floyd immediately commanded Daya and Tina to follow his lead. As the slime prepared to strike again, Hiroki dodged, leaving Floyd in awe of his dodging ability. Hiroki continued to evade the relentless slime, while the slime angrily bounced up and down. Floyd readied his attack, slashing at the slime with his sword, striking it mid-air. Tina unleashed fire magic in support, while Floyd kept landing blows on the creature. The slime, stubborn as ever, kept targeting Hiroki, taking heavy damage yet refusing to fall. The slime charged again, heading straight for Floyd, striking him instantly. Hiroki acted quickly, using his healing magic to help Floyd recover swiftly from the blow. Floyd swung a powerful strike, landing a critical hit that finally defeated the slime. He immediately checked on Hiroki, then ordered everyone to head back. Hiroki drank an antiparalysis potion, the bitter taste snapping him back to awareness, proving its effectiveness. Floyd handed him water to wash away the bitterness, leaving Hiroki deeply grateful for their timely rescue. He realized he had reached his limit, and if Daya hadn't insisted on going deeper into the dungeon, they might not have found him. Hiroki thanked Daya, though Daya humbly claimed he hadn't done much. Hiroki then asked why they had entered such a dangerous dungeon. Daya explained that the deeper parts of the cave were perfect for training against multiple enemies. Hiroki mentioned the slimes he had encountered on the upper floors. The slimes gathered near the edge of the floor, surprising Floyd and his team. Floyd asked Hiroki why he hadn't defeated the slimes. Daya explained that while Hiroki could dodge every attack, he couldn't deal any damage. Floyd was surprised Hiroki had dared to enter such a dangerous place without the ability to defeat anything. The leader mocked Hiroki, but the healer had no choice. No one else wanted him on their team. Floyd laughed at Hiroki's predicament, while Daya discussed how they could eliminate all the slimes. Floyd agreed, but noted it seemed a bit cowardly. Daya didn't care, preparing for the attack, knowing they needed to leave the cave soon. With no other option, Floyd agreed to Daya's plan. Tina paused the group and suggested lending Hiroki a bracelet. Hiroki looked at the bracelet, puzzled. It was an accessory designed to evenly distribute experience points among team members. Excitement filled Hiroki as he put the bracelet on. Finally, the healer would earn the experience points he deserved. Floyd and his team prepared for the attack, but Hiroki made sure to activate his shield first. Floyd was pleased with his team's skills, while Daya thanked Hiroki for his support. The slimes were swiftly defeated with ease. Floyd and his team found the mission simple and effortless. Hiroki excitedly shared that he had reached level 2, leaving Daya confused. While Hiroki himself felt disappointed by his progress, Floyd observed quietly, then suddenly extended an official invitation for Hiroki to join his team, surprising Hiroki and thrilling Tina. Hiroki hesitated, asking if Floyd was sure, as he was only a healer with dodging skills, but Floyd didn't mind. Daya agreed as well, though Hiroki thought their decision lacked common sense. Tina eagerly insisted Hiroki should join them. Hiroki paused for a moment, then quickly accepted the offer. Floyd excitedly began organizing a welcome party for Hiroki. Hiroki silently looked forward to the exciting days ahead with them. He rummaged through his bag and pulled out items from Rory and Ren. He had once thought his journey would end with their group, but now, joining Floyd's team didn't seem so bad at all. The group continued their hunt, now with their formation complete. Hiroki thought having a defender made sense, since Daya was still building his strength. Hiroki patiently reinforced his shield, something Daya was deeply grateful for. Though Hiroki felt thankful to be included, he still felt like he wasn't truly essential to their team. Daya kept defeating slimes until something caught his attention. Hiroki tried to be more helpful by shielding Daya from the front, but Daya stubbornly maintained his position in the formation. Daya explained that being the vanguard was his duty, and felt disheartened, thinking he wasn't reliable enough. Hiroki paused, understanding Daya's feelings. Floyd tried to lighten the mood, joking quietly about Hiroki. Hiroki sighed, feeling like his dodge healer build was once again being dismissed. Suddenly, a slime slipped past an attack and headed straight for Hiroki, prompting Floyd to remark that Hiroki could dodge anything. Hiroki playfully toyed with the slime, while Daya warned them to be cautious. Hiroki was startled when Daya suddenly attacked the slime with fierce force. The vanguard ordered Hiroki to retreat, pointing to Tina, who was battling a slime despite being a rear guard. Hiroki reassured Daya, saying Tina would be fine as long as she had his shield. Floyd teased Daya, telling him to calm down, and Daya began to realize the value of having a healer on the team. The young adventurers were on edge, knowing other monsters remained, while Floyd watched them with the pride of a father. As night fell at the Falling Star Inn, Hiroki looked exhausted, and Daya was just as worn out from a full day of fighting. Hiroki reassured Daya, saying it was fine, encouraging him to do better next time, which frustrated Daya passionately, vowing to improve on the next mission. Hiroki, with brotherly concern, made sure Daya knew he believed in him. Suddenly, a mug of beer was handed to Hiroki, as Floyd and the group celebrated Hiroki's official joining. Floyd urged Hiroki to drink, but Hiroki didn't touch the beer. The innkeeper brought out a spread of food, and the group dug into a hearty celebratory feast. Out of nowhere, Floyd announced that a hero had appeared in the kingdom, shocking Hiroki. Hiroki realized that rumors about Ren were spreading quickly. The group eagerly discussed the hero, hearing he was now in the kingdom, making Hiroki realize how widespread the rumors about Ren had become, even though only a few days had passed since they had been summoned. Hiroki asked Floyd how he knew about this, but the group just assumed he was as interested in the topic as they were. Hiroki wanted to reveal the truth, but held back, knowing he couldn't casually disclose that he had been summoned alongside the hero. The group mentioned that the hero was working hard to increase his strength, even entering a dangerous dungeon filled with monsters and traps. What concerned them most was that Floyd had heard the hero had been cursed by a powerful spell during his trials, which struck a chord with Hiroki. In his drunken state, Floyd tried to share more, but passed out midway through. With Floyd unconscious, the group continued their celebration. Around midnight, Hiroki quietly left the inn, heading to the stone dungeon, desperately searching for herbs to earn money. He thought about Ren and Ruri facing dangerous challenges, guessing the king had forced them into tasks they didn't want. Hiroki realized he needed to grow stronger, and quickly. He remembered he had leveled up earlier and decided to check his status. To his disappointment, his level hadn't changed. It still read nobody. His slow progress reminded him of why no one wanted him on their team. As he entered the dungeon, doubts crept in about whether he would ever reach level 50, wondering if the dwarves had placed their faith in him for nothing. At least he hadn't revealed his level at the guild, knowing it would only make other adventurers see him as an even greater outsider. Despite his struggles, Hiroki continued to hone his dodging skills. The next morning, when he returned to the inn, Hiroki walked downstairs to find Floyd still exhausted from his night of drinking. Floyd quickly headed back to his room, planning to rest for the entire day. Tina asked Hiroki if he had slept well. Hiroki wanted to say he hadn't slept at all, but kept the thought to himself. The group stopped by the guild before resuming their adventure. There, Hala told Hiroki that someone named Ruri had left a message for him on the notice board. Hiroki felt a sense of urgency upon receiving Ruri's message. The letter said she would wait for him at the Plum Bar for 2 nights. Hala mentioned the notice had been posted the day before, making Hiroki worry that something might have happened to them. Afterward, the group, excluding Floyd, returned to the stone dungeon, and Hiroki used his shield skill to protect everyone, knowing the dangers without Floyd's presence. Daya insisted they descend to the 2nd floor. Cautious after the previous day's events, he wanted to practice their formation, and seeing Daya's resolve, Hiroki agreed. They encountered a pack of wild rats and successfully defeated them. This victory gave Hiroki hope that, with time, they could grow into a strong, coordinated team. As the group celebrated their success, they crossed paths with a team that had previously rejected Hiroki. Their leader sneered, congratulating Hiroki for finding a group that would take him in. The group mentioned they were heading deeper into the dungeon. As the archer girl carrying their luggage passed by, Hiroki confirmed that she was indeed an elf, and began to ponder this. The next day, the group returned to the slime cave to continue training, this time with Floyd fully recovered. After sunset, Hiroki made his way to the Plum Bar to meet Ruri. The two friends reunited, and as Ruri's stunning beauty captured the attention of everyone in the bar, Hiroki couldn't help but feel a sense of envy from the men around him. While they chatted, Hiroki shared rumors of a hero leveling up in a dangerous dungeon. He cautioned Ruri to be cautious, as he'd heard the monsters there had the power to cast deadly curses. Ruri's silence made Hiroki realize the worst had happened. She confessed that Ren had indeed been cursed by the very spell Hiroki had warned her about. A young girl had reported that after Ren's battle with a giant snake, he had a strange mark on his body. Though it wasn't harming him yet, it would eventually spread and strangle him to death. Despite the king claiming he was searching for a cure, no progress had been made. Ruri told Hiroki she searched the royal library for any information on the curse, but found nothing helpful. Hiroki vowed to ask around and gather any knowledge about the curse, determined not to let his friend die. He asked if the king's orders had drained her energy. Ruri replied that the king had only told them to level up, and since they also sought strength, their goals were aligned. Ruri showed Hiroki her status, surprising him with her level 16. While Ruri reassured him he'd catch up, Hiroki wasn't so sure. Suddenly, two drunken men approached their table. One leaned in too close to Ruri, demanding she spend time with them. Hiroki stepped between Ruri and the men, creating a safe distance for her. The men, angered, attacked him, but Hiroki easily dodged their wild punches. Ruri suggested they leave, but the drunks continued harassing her, threatening trouble if she didn't comply. In a sudden shift, Ruri summoned a fierce gust of wind, ripping their clothes off. Embarrassed, the two men scrambled to cover themselves. Ruri warned them that the Kuide said they were no match for the thugs from her family, revealing a more fearsome side of her that Hiroki had never seen before. As they walked beneath the night sky, Hiroki realized he no longer needed to protect Ruri. She could defend herself just fine. Later, as Hiroki wandered the streets alone, he felt sorrowful thinking about Ren's curse, and the grim possibility that Ren might not survive the coming months. The next morning, Hiroki asked his friends how to break a curse. Floyd suggested Hiroki search for an antidote, which could range from basic to advanced levels. Hiroki asked if there was anything beyond the advanced level, and Floyd explained that such remedies were typically found in dungeon chests or crafted by the Kingdom's Research Institute. Though finding the right ingredients was nearly impossible, Hiroki pondered this, feeling hopeless. He wasn't strong enough to conquer a dungeon, nor did he have the connections to ask the Research Institute for help. What caught Hiroki's attention was Floyd's mention of demons making progress in curse-breaking research. Floyd explained that demons were experts in magic and curses, as their land was rich in magical resources that attracted many researchers and alchemists. Hiroki, lost in thought, imagined a seductive demoness in a lab coat, complete with glasses and lab equipment. Floyd added that the guild might have books on demons, sparking Hiroki's excitement. He decided to visit the guild before their next adventure, and Tina volunteered to accompany him. At the guild, Hala informed them that they had advanced books on antidotes, though there seemed to be something off about the subject. Tina quietly asked Hala if there were any books on demon medicine, which made Hala visibly tense. Nevertheless, Hala retrieved a book from the back and placed it on the table. Hiroki asked why the book caused such discomfort, almost as if it were forbidden. Hala explained that the king held a prejudice against demons, making Hiroki realize that Ruri must have faced difficulty searching for curse information in the royal library. Hala added that, as a neutral organization, the guild could keep books on demons, but such materials couldn't be made public. Tina eagerly flipped through the pages, thrilled when she found a section on antidotes to curses, a herb of extraordinary magical power. This spark of hope filled Hiroki, but the bad news followed. The herb could only be found on the demon continent of Apricot. Upon hearing this, Hiroki urgently planned to inform Ruri of the vital discovery. Tina, however, became excited, dreaming of one day venturing to the demon continent. Alla mentioned that if Tina was serious about leveling up, it could take her 1 to 2 years. This dampened Hiroki's spirit, as he knew if it took too long, he couldn't save Ren in time. Hiroki then imagined the demons and dangers awaiting them there, and realized he couldn't involve Tina and the others in such a perilous journey. The group then made their way to the stone dungeon, noticing more adventurers gathered at the entrance than usual. As they descended into the depths, they discussed heading down to the 5th floor. Along the way, they passed adventurers battling fierce monsters. Tina, thrilled by the activity, felt safer knowing the odds of serious danger were lower. However, Hiroki was too absorbed in his thoughts about his plan and what he needed to prepare for the demon continent to pay proper attention. Noticing his distraction, Tina asked if something was troubling him. Both were so caught up in their thoughts that they didn't notice Floyd and Daya had already engaged monsters, with Floyd sustaining a wound. Without hesitation, they rushed in to assist, using shields and magic. Floyd warned them not to relax, even though they hadn't reached the 5th floor yet, and they responded swiftly, as if under military command. Later, by the stairs leading to the 5th floor, the group paused for a break. Floyd took the opportunity to ask Hiroki what had been bothering him, but before he could respond, the arrogant group from earlier approached. Their faces were twisted with anger, their clothes torn and ragged. Hiroki's group knew that trying to talk to them now would only bring trouble. As the bullies passed, Hiroki noticed their injuries, but seeing them move on, he decided not to heal them. Suddenly, the elf archer girl appeared, trailing behind her team, so weak she collapsed from exhaustion. Hiroki and his friends were immediately concerned, but her leader only looked irritated, seeing her as a burden. He took her luggage, which made Hiroki feel slightly relieved. But in reality, he was simply using the luggage to leave her behind. In her haste, she slipped while attempting to catch up with them. The elf girl begged them to wait, but she slipped, struggling to catch up. Floyd shouted at the bullies for abandoning their teammate. The group leader defended his actions, claiming he only wanted her to rest and saw no issue with it. Hiroki stepped forward, healing the elf girl's wounds, while Tina offered her some water. With what little strength she had, the elf girl thanked Hiroki. As her team continued to walk away, Hiroki angrily declared they were cruel to leave her behind. The young elf girl, grateful for their help, thanked the group. She then introduced herself as Lucia. Hiroki introduced himself as a dodge healer, which left Lucia puzzled, unsure of its meaning. The others introduced themselves, glad to have made a new friend. They didn't hesitate to voice how terrible they thought Lucia's team had been. Lucia admitted she had caused problems for them, but never expected them to abandon her. She confessed she had made a mistake by investing all her points in attack, neglecting accuracy. Hearing this, the group quickly realized that Lucia's poor accuracy made her a danger when firing arrows. There was a high risk that she could end up hitting her own teammates. Lucia, feeling despondent, confessed that no group would want her now. She was only useful for carrying luggage. Hiroki, understanding her pain, sympathized, as they were both in similar situations. He asked Lucia about her life before becoming an adventurer, and she shared that she had spent her days hunting near her village, shooting arrows tirelessly until she finally struck her target. Tina reassured her that her lack of accuracy wasn't a problem, especially with Hiroki around to back her up. This sent Hiroki into a frenzy of excitement, and he immediately dashed off, brimming with energy. Hiroki urged Lucia to take a shot at the moles while they were focused on him. The elf hesitated, fearing that her arrow might accidentally strike him instead. Hiroki reassured her with a confident smile, telling her everything would be fine. Lucia watched in awe as Hiroki dodged the moles with ease, his persistence inspiring her. Finally, she drew her bow. Her arrow flew swiftly toward Hiroki, but he dodged it without a hint of trouble, leaving Lucia utterly stunned. As Hiroki continued his acrobatics, he urged her to try again. The elf girl took aim once more. This time, as Hiroki dodged, she fired and hit 2 moles with a single shot, leaving her in disbelief. It left her in a state of disbelief. Hiroki was overjoyed for her, impressed by how far she had come. Lucia beamed with excitement, her eyes sparkling with joy. Hiroki reminded her that there were still 3 moles remaining. With determination, she eagerly readied her bow once more. Despite several missed shots, it took some time, but eventually, she succeeded in finishing the task. After a few missed attempts, Lucia finally took down all the assassin moles, and both she and Hiroki celebrated their victory. Since Lucia couldn't return to her old group, Floyd officially invited her to join theirs. Lucia was thrilled by the invitation, eager to lend her skills as long as Hiroki was by her side. While the others were excited to welcome a new member, Hiroki realized he couldn't stay for long. He soon needed to embark on a journey to the Demon Continent in search of the Dream Plum Grass. At last, Hiroki informed the group that he would soon be leaving for a long journey. At first, Tina was excited when Hiroki mentioned his upcoming trip, but Floyd could sense the shift in mood and asked where Hiroki planned to go. Hiroki explained that he needed to travel to the Demon Continent to save a friend's life, and he couldn't take them along as it would put them in danger. Tina pleaded to go with him, refusing to accept the idea of Hiroki leaving them behind. She burst into tears, then quickly apologized, trying to smile as she promised to wait for him until she became stronger. Hiroki explained that he had to leave immediately, making Tina realize that this would be their last hunt together. She tried to lift everyone's spirits, urging them to do their best on this final outing together. But it was clear to everyone that she was struggling. The group began to strategize how they would proceed without Hiroki. Hiroki suggested Lucia should attack from a distance while enemies were far off, then retreat to defense when the Kaikokane got closer. allowing the others to handle close combat. Lucia liked the plan, as it meant she wouldn't have to worry about hitting her teammates if they stayed behind her. The group descended from the 5th floor to the 7th, where they encountered mini-orcs. Lucia took them down from a distance, and together they wiped out all the mini-orcs before the enemies could close in. This fueled Lucia's excitement even more. As they faced more monsters, the power of her one-shot kill ability became increasingly clear, despite her accuracy still improving. Tina poured all her energy into her magic attacks, even managing to defeat a few mini-orcs on her own. But as the orcs closed in, obstacles arose that prevented Lucia from attacking from a distance. Suddenly, 2 more orcs appeared from behind. They were too close for Lucia to react in time. Hiroki rushed toward them, drawing their attention and causing the orcs to focus on him instead. However, they couldn't land a blow due to Hiroki's exceptional dodging skills. Lucia tried to shoot an arrow, but it missed. When she fired again, the arrow still didn't hit the target. Hiroki noticed the silence between her shots. He urged her not to hesitate, understanding that aiming at someone could be intimidating. To boost Lucia's confidence, Hiroki told her to fire with all her strength. His support made Lucia blush. She nodded, ready for another shot. Lucia missed Hiroki but hit both mini-orcs. She was impressed by how Hiroki dodged each of her arrows. Hiroki was pleased with their teamwork, thinking their future together would be full of exciting moments. But suddenly, he remembered he would soon have to leave. Meanwhile, Tina was giving everything she had in battle, unleashing powerful bursts of fire at the mini-orcs. Hiroki looked at his team and saw how much stronger they had become, confident they could manage without him. But then Tina collapsed. Hiroki rushed to her side, healing her quickly. Floyd realized Tina had exhausted her mana, pushing herself too hard. Hiroki wondered why she had overexerted herself. Floyd explained it was because Tina wanted to impress him, to prove she could be strong enough for the journey. The group decided to return, with Hiroki carrying the unconscious Tina. As he walked, Tina murmured his name in her sleep. When they reached the surface and arrived at the gates of the royal city, Hiroki was concerned about Tina's condition, but Floyd reassured him that she would be fine after some rest. Floyd explained that Tina had grown so attached to Hiroki, wanting to prove she was strong enough to join him on the demon continent, but had overexerted herself. Floyd took over carrying Tina and suggested that Hiroki and Lucia head to the guild to trade the materials they had gathered from the dungeon. On their way, Hiroki asked Lucia how she felt about leaving her old group. She said she felt happier now, preferring where she was. She preferred the place she was now. Hiroki reassured Lucia that even if he left, she would fit perfectly with the group. Though Lucia agreed, doubt still lingered in her eyes. At the guild, Hala was surprised to see Hiroki and Lucia together. Upon hearing the story, Hala was furious that Lucia's old group had abandoned her like that. Lucia, however, felt a sense of relief, thinking this situation was a blessing in disguise. After Hiroki and Lucia exchanged their materials, they prepared to leave. Suddenly, Lucia's former group leader appeared, furious that she had joined another group. He mocked Hiroki, calling him useless, and sneered at the irony of a worthless archer joining Hiroki's group. As he approached Hiroki, his face twisted like a demon ready to strike. Lucia stood firm, defending Hiroki, asserting he was far from useless. Enraged, the man raised his fist, ready to hit Lucia. Hiroki swiftly stepped in, blocking the attack to protect her. Despite Hala's pleas for them to stop, the former group leader kept trying to land a punch on Hiroki, missing each time as Hiroki effortlessly dodged. His anger only grew. In a fit of frustration, he drew his sword, shocking the surrounding adventurers. But even with his sword, he couldn't land a blow, swinging wildly. As the situation spiraled, a guild official intervened, grabbing the man by the shoulder. He warned the man that if he didn't stop, his adventurer status would be revoked. The man finally calmed, glaring at Lucia, but she turned away, refusing to meet his spiteful gaze. Infuriated, he stormed out, shouting that he never cared about her in the first place. The adventurers, who had witnessed everything, cheered for Hiroki and Lucia. They were impressed by Hiroki's ability to dodge every attack and congratulated Lucia for joining a new group. Some even suggested celebrating together. Hiroki politely declined, explaining that one of their group members had fainted earlier. Hiroki and Lucia thanked the guild official for stepping in, but he simply replied that it was part of his job. Lucia thanked Hiroki for protecting her, though Hiroki was just relieved that they were both safe. Back at the inn, Tina dreamed of fighting a slime with Hiroki by her side. After the battle, Hiroki calmly said goodbye, causing Tina to beg him not to leave. When she woke, she cried out for Hiroki to stay. Daya gently held her hand, reassuring her. Tina realized she was in bed at the inn, remembering that she had passed out from mana exhaustion. She burst into tears, recalling the conversation about Hiroki leaving, feeling guilty for being a burden to everyone. Tina feared Hiroki might grow tired of her. Daya and Floyd comforted her, assuring her that Hiroki would never think less of her because of this. Floyd advised her that it's impossible to live exactly as those we care about do, but to cherish the good moments they've shared. Tina wiped away her tears, vowing to become stronger. She apologized for worrying them throughout the night. The three of them wished each other a peaceful night's rest. Tina thanked Daya for his concern, and Dia advised her not to rush things. The next morning, Tina came downstairs and saw Hiroki. He was happy to see her feeling better, but Tina felt guilty and bowed, apologizing for making him worry. Flustered, she started to say Hiroki shouldn't forget her, but quickly corrected herself, saying he shouldn't forget their group. Hiroki smiled, saying he was happy to have met everyone, and that he would think of her whenever he could. Tina felt appreciated and blushed. Hiroki then asked where Floyd and Daya were, and Tina explained they were still asleep after staying up late worrying about her, especially Daya. The innkeeper entered, delighted to see Tina better. Tina asked if she could prepare breakfast for Floyd and Daya as thanks for looking after her. The innkeeper happily agreed, even offering to show her some cooking tips. Both Lucia and Hiroki cheered for Tina's homemade meal, confident Floyd and Daya would be thrilled. Lucia then asked Hiroki about his plans for the day, and he replied that he was heading to the guild to gather information on how to reach the demon continent. Tina, feeling sad, asked if he was leaving today, but Hiroki reassured her that he would stay until the evening, promising to return as soon as he found the dream plum grass. Hiroki apologized for having to leave so soon after joining their group, but Tina quickly reassured him not to worry about it. In Hiroki's heart, he thought about Ren's curse, and how he had been bound by the king's contract from the start. Lucia looked at Hiroki and unexpectedly asked if he would be willing to accept her as his companion. Hiroki was stunned by the request, but Lucia made the offer without hesitation or doubt.